acequia para traer el agua. En la primavera el agua es vida. En la primavera el agua es vida. Preparemos el jardín, las semillas sembramos de frijol, maíz y chile y luego las regamos. De frijol, maíz y chile y luego las regamos. Bajando de esa loma, brinca esa acequia y echa la maroma. Brinca esa acequia y echa la maroma. Ya llegó el otoño, la siembra pepenamos y damos las gracias por todo lo del campo. Y damos las gracias por todo lo del campo. Ya brillan las estrellas sobre la nieve fría. Toda el agua que caiga todita sea bendita. Toda el agua que caiga todita sea bendita. La noche está llegando, yo sigo trabajando para mantener a lo que yo quiero tanto, para mantener lo que yo quiero tanto.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to start the presentation. Thank you for being here. Are we seeing it? Yes, no?
Yes.
Awesome. Jorge, did you want to introduce?
Yes. I'd like to, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for taking the time to listen to Santiago. Santiago Maestas is the president of the South Valley Regional Association of Acequias, member of the Pajarito Acequia, and a long-term community mentor, community leader, and a good friend. And I'm very, very delighted that we're doing this because we're going to be able to record Santiago and people, you know, this is an opportunity for us to maintain the knowledge base of the people who are coming right behind us and all their experience and deep understanding of some of these complicated issues. And Santiago is one of those, you know, full of knowledge. And I want to say thank you, Santiago, for taking the time out to share your knowledge and expertise and all the wonderful things that you represent. Muchas gracias.
Okay, so as Jorge said, welcome and thank you for your presence. Santiago was hoping that we could do a roll call. So just say your name and presente, or you can share it in the chat, either way, whatever you prefer. My name is Jess. I work for Sesos. Presente.
Tiger, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Anaisa Tiger Nunez. I work for Open Space and I work in the education department, presente.
I don't know if you guys can see me, but my name is Marissa. I work at Sesos Presente as a operations assistant. I'm really excited to see this presentation and learn more about the community I serve.
Maya. Maya says hola, Maya well from Sesos. And the Zoom user.
I think that might be David Lujan, I think, not sure. And then we have Alejandra.
Alejandra Gonzalez. Thank you. From Alejandra Gonzalez to everyone.
You ready to get started?
Yes.
So Jorge already covered a lot of this, but Santiago is the president for the South Valley Regional Association of Acequias, mayordomo for Don Gabino Andrade Community Acequia, commissioner of the Pajarito Acequia Association, and member of Concilio of the New Mexico Acequia Association. And he's going to get started on Acequia 101.
Bienvenidos a todos ustedes. Que Dios te bendiga. Welcome. I'm Santiago Maestas, the commissioner on the Pajarito Acequia and president of the South Valley Regional Association of Acequias and a member of the Concilio of the New Mexico Acequia Association. We'll start off with why do acequias matter? Or what is an acequia? An acequia is an irrigation ditch. It's a community resource. The word acequia comes from the Moors, which means a carrier of water. And it was part of the colonization of New Mexico by the Spanish. So the acequias basically date from the beginning of the colonial period. So acequias provide a ecosystem, a habitat for wildlife, as well as irrigation for the growing of food in this valley. These acequias are communal and gravity fed. Yeah, they serve as a community institution that fosters social cohesion and preserves cultural heritage. The acequias are local government entities and provide democratic community governed methods for the management of state water resources. So acequias then are critical to maintaining the valley green. Without the acequias, crisscrossing the valley like this human circulatory system. The valley would be just as dry as the mesas around us. In fact, when you see unirrigated land in the valley, many times it's dry and only grows weeds and elm trees along the fence lines. So it's critical to keeping the valley green, to providing not only a habitat for the animals, but also a canopy to reduce the temperatures in the really hot summer, which is really important as we approach climate change, or as the climate is in fact changing, and it's getting hotter in the winter. It'll be colder and hotter in the summer and colder in the winter. Also, the snow pack has been lessening, and we're depending more and more on the summer monsoons. We can go on to the next item. Okay. During the colonial period, that's starting in 1573, okay, the laws of the Indies provided for the settlement of the New World, and it also protected the rights of the Native Americans. The laws of the Indies then provided to settlers the term hidalgos, for the people that would found communities, would be known as people of known heritage as such. Hidalgo then is a don, and many times a rich person in the New World. The peones usually are mestizos, both Spanish and English mix, as well as the Indios. So the Native Americans were also given land grants, and that's why the pueblos of New Mexico still retain their lands and are still here today. Since these land grants were granted by the sovereignty of Spain, the United States, when it occupied New Mexico, recognized these land grants, and also recognized the grants given to the Native Americans. The Spanish colonization of New Mexico started in 1598, and this is where I believe it was Onate brought the actual first settlers. There had been previous expeditions, but they were not here to settle. They were looking for gold, which they didn't find. But what Spain did want was the occupation of its land claims in New Mexico, what became known as the New Mexico Territory. The Spanish colonization then also brought the Acequia customs and traditions. This is a photo of the Tribunal de las Acequias in Valencia, Spain, along the Mediterranean coast in southern Spain. Valencia was occupied by the Moors, and the Moors brought to Valencia and to Spain as a whole the Acequia customs and traditions. The Acequias are then have been under the management and control of the Tribunal de las Acequias since 960 AD, prior to the Christian occupation of Valencia. It meets every Sunday for the last going on over 1,000 years. I'm sorry, every Thursday at the steps of the cathedral in Valencia. The tribunal is made up of 8 what they call sindicatos, basically buena gente, good men. They are elected by the 8 acequias that take water from the Rio Turia, which runs to the center of the city of Valencia. 4 acequias on the east side and 4 acequias on the west side. In 2014, they presented this Medal of Honor to the New Mexico Acequia Association for carrying on the customs and traditions in the New World for the last 400 years. Here we see a photo of Don Bustos. He's a secretary of the New Mexico Acequia Association. He received the medal on our behalf, and on to his immediate left is the tribunal hearing either a complaint or making a decision on an investigation after a complaint has been made, either for the taking of water without permission, the interference of an acequia, and so these complaints are irrigating out of turn, and so these problems that come up both in New Mexico and in Valencia are addressed totally verbally. Basically, the complaint is made, the tribunal sends out its alguacil, its investigator, its sheriff, and they collect the information and interview the parties, and then report the findings back to the tribunal. The tribunal then meets the following Thursday and makes a decision. So these customs and traditions were brought by the colonists and also adopted by the pueblos. The pueblos all have mayordomos, which serve the same purpose, settling disputes, arranging for the maintenance and operation of their local acequia. So in 1692, after the Pueblo revolt, the former colonists, they call them settlers, but they're colonists here in the Valle de Atrisco, basically returned. When they returned, then they were granted land. In particular, the land grant then was based upon basically, it could be, under the laws of the Indies, it could be put together, could be given to a military officer or to a person of notoriety, or they could be given to the people as such individuals. 10 men could get together and petition for a land grant, but they had to occupy the land once it was upon consideration. The New Mexico governor would visit the area that they're claiming and would then grant the grant to them. So the Atrisco land grant then was granted by de Vargas to the grandson of Eduardo Duran y Chavez, who was a sergeant in de Vargas's army. He was also given an encomenda, and this was basically made him the alcalde for the pueblos of Sandia and the pueblo of Isleta. And as being the alcalde, he could demand the labor of the Native Americans to help dig the acequia. that we irrigate from to grow wheat so that the colonists could bake bread. But the colonists were brought basically technology, the Acequia technology in return. So they were able to basically use scrapers to take water from the Rio Grande. The Rio Bravo, as it was noted at that time. And the reason it was called the Rio Bravo was in the springtime, the snow melt would fill the rivers, would push the river back and forth along the valley. So many times the river changed its course as it washed through the Atrisco Valle, the Valle de Atrisco. The Native Americans were unable to tap that water during that period, and it rushed too fast. But they did irrigate their lands from the smaller streams like the Placitas stream, the Carnuel stream. There was various streams that originated here in the Sandia Mountains and would flow down through the foothills into the valley. And so they were able to use those waters to plant their gardens. They were able to use the arroyos by doing waffle gardens that would collect water when the arroyos ran. And they would plant their corn really deep, and it would finally poke through once it got water from the arroyos, especially during the monsoon season in the summer, which we're still using to irrigate our lands as well. So the Atrisco land grant also brought wheat, fruit trees, grapevines, animals, sheep, goats, pigs, horses, and cattle, and oxen. With the oxen, they were able to scrape out diversions from the Rio Grande and ended up providing more land for people to irrigate and to cultivate. So the land grants were a benefit both to the Native Americans and the colonists. The Pajarito land grant in particular, I live on the Pajarito land grant and irrigate from the Pajarito Acequia. They date the land grant based on Josefa Baca's will that was made before her death in 1746. Josefa Baca was part of the Baca family. Antonio Baca was a captain in de Vargas's army that reoccupied New Mexico and the Reconquista. So he was granted the land that would go to a Rico, to a Hidalgo. Basically, he was a Spanish, and he then would get X number of plots of land, or at least 5 plots of land, and what were called peones, and he would get X amount of cattle, horses, sheep, goats, pigs, that he could then raise meat for his family and for the other members of his household, the servants, the enizaros, and who were basically they were Native American, and they were slaves. Usually they were Navajo or Apache here in the Rio Grande Valley. After the Reconquista, the pueblos well, the alcaldes could no longer force the pueblos to provide labor, nor could they force them to grow wheat for them anymore. So the ricos or dons, hidalgos, could then basically farm out their land through partidos. Basically, people, peones without land, then would receive smaller portions of land grants as such. And they would also get sheep, cattle, and horses so that they could also work on, have meat and other animals. And they would have enough land basically to grow corn and melons and wheat and chilies and plant fruit trees, which all had to be irrigated because it just doesn't rain enough. And there's not enough snow in the winter to really maintain these cultivated crops. So let's go on to the next item. The American occupation started in 1846. So neither Mexico nor Spain had any jurisdiction any longer. And so he established a body of laws. He was the general in charge. And these laws then also included the customs and traditions of the Acequias. So it included a Bill of Rights, a list of appointments to civil offices, and the governmental laws for the territory of New Mexico. And the territory included the laws of Missouri and Texas and elements of the Livingston Code, a framework for a penal system. So let's move on to the next item. Okay, so the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848 then guaranteed to the remaining residents of New Mexico, to the Mexican citizens, to the Spanish Hidalgos, to protect, and it guarantees that our land and our water will be protected, and that our rights as members, as citizens of the United States would be recognized. So it's critical to our present day status as citizens here. Native New Mexicans, both Native American and Mestizo and Spanish. Move on. Okay, the first survey of the Acequias in the Middle Rio Grande was made in 1896. Mexico had filed a complaint regarding the provisions of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, that they were not receiving their fair share of water in the Rio Grande. Basically, the Treaty of Hidalgo guarantees both to Mexico and the United States the waters of the Rio Grande, and as such, the survey was conducted in order to address those complaints, determine how much water we were actually irrigating, and so it did a survey of Acequias all the way from Texas. I forgot the name of the fort in Texas, all the way up to Colorado. So it names each acequia that he found, and how many acres it was irrigating. And so that was the measurements used to negotiate the settlement with Mexico over their complaint. So this is where we first have numbers regarding how many acres the Pajarito Acequia, for example, irrigated in the Triscos Acequias. Elephant Butte then was built. It started in 1904 by a private party as a water company, and then it was taken over by the federal government in 1908 by the 1902 by the Bureau of Reclamation. They call it the Rio Grande Project, and it involved building a dam that would be the largest in the world at that time upon its completion, which is Elephant Butte, which is still in operation to date. It stores water for irrigation, power generation, and recreation now. Elephant Butte also serves a vital part of international water delivery, not to mention water supplies for the Mesilla Valley in New Mexico and Texas. Let's go to the next item. The Office of the State Engineer then was created in 1907. The Kearney Code and the Constitution weren't enough to manage disputes over water and who owned the water and who could use the water. So basically, New Mexico adopted in 1907 the territorial legislature a water code to regulate water rights, and this was once again in addressing the issue that Mexico had brought up, that they weren't getting their fair share. So the Office of State Engineer still regulates basically the transfer of water, the sale of water, and the issuing of permits to irrigate water. The basis of a permit is putting the water to beneficial use. If you don't use the water, you lose it, basically. So the issue of beneficial use becomes critical. Let's move on to the next item. Okay. By 1910, the next survey of the Rio Grande was done. And this survey then by Herbert Yao, who later on became one of the New Mexico chief engineer. Basically, the office of the chief engineer, basically he ended up becoming that, or taking that office after he completed the survey. He also surveyed the same acequias that the previous survey had done. And what he ended up doing was also identifying how much land could be brought back into production. Okay. A lot of land after the Civil War was put into production, but then was lost due to the silting of the Rio Grande and the flooding of the valley. Water was diverted by the acequias would pool and create swamps that were not irrigatable. Saltgrass, only saltgrass would grow, basically. So he proposed the digging of drains to drain the water and return more land to cultivation. This ended up becoming the template for the creation of the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District. Let's move on to the next item. Okay, New Mexico statehood in 1912, okay, guaranteed the right of any citizen of the state of New Mexico to obtain water from wherever they could. So this means that if you can find a source of surface water that has not been claimed, and you can link up to it, you can irrigate. It also provides for you to put a well to groundwater and for domestic purposes, as well as for agricultural production. So it guarantees all of us that right. Let's move on to the next item. Okay, the state up to today has created the water laws, chapter 72, which basically outlines the role of the chief engineer and codifies a water right in the system. It's based upon the doctrine of prior appropriation. This means that public surface and underground waters are subject to appropriation, with earlier use having priority over later one. This establishes a process for the state engineer to manage and administer these water rights. Water use permits, transfers, adjudication. Key sections focus on beneficial use and how water rights can be severed through forfeiture and how they can be appealed. Also, abandonment is an issue. Chapter 73 focuses on special districts, and it outlaws the laws which govern various water-related entities, acequias, conservancy districts, and irrigation districts. This section provides the legal framework for the formation, operation, and powers of these special entities. Key pieces covered include the management of acequias, water rights, financing for infrastructure, and cooperation with state and federal agencies for water management programs. So these are critical for the management and operation of our acequias. So let's move on to the next item. Okay, so in 1925, the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District was the law was amended by the state legislature. Okay, and it would provide flood protection from the Rio Grande in the spring, as well as during the monsoon season. And by 1935, they had built a dam on the Rio Chama. That dam still exists today. It's being repaired. It's called El Vado Dam. It stored water for the purposes of managing the snowmelt on the Rio Chama and saving water. And what it did was it would save water, it would store water for the summer season. Many times after the spring runoff, the river would literally dry up, as it has, for example, this year, because we had a very poor snowmelt. So that stored water then could be released when the snowmelt ended, when the spring runoffs ended in July usually, and we could continue irrigating through the summer, all the way into the fall, usually all the way to the end of October. Okay? And basically, subsequently, there are dams at El Vado. At Cochiti is also a dam on the Rio Grande itself. But we cannot store water for the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District. The Cochiti Dam is strictly for flood control during the spring runoff. It also is used for recreation. Water is released through Cochiti, then to keep the rivers running. But there's a limit to how much they can release. The Angostura is another dam. It's called a weir. It's a low dam. It's very it's shallow. Basically, water can go over it at the same time as it diverts water into the Acequia Madres, into the feeder ditches that previously provided water to our Acequias. And the Angostura dam is over here at Algodones. And Algodones, just that village between Santa Clara and Santa Ana pueblos on the way to Santa Fe. And it runs down the east side, runs the main canal, then runs down the east side of the Rio Grande, and all the way to, let's see, all the way to Albuquerque, through Corrales. At Corrales, there's a siphon that goes under the river and delivers water from that main canal, the Albuquerque main canal. And as such, that's how they get their water. That siphon, that tube that goes under the river that delivers water, has basically rusted out and is no longer working. The MRGCD is negotiating with the pueblo to restore the pipe line, and it's still in the process. In the meantime, they are pumping water for the village of Corrales, and but they can only pump water when there's enough water in the river to be pumped. So when the river goes dry, Corrales goes dry as well. And the diversion dams at there's another one here at Isleta, just south of Pajarito, that delivers water then to Valencia and Socorro counties. And then San Acacia, actually San Acacia way down in Socorro County is the last weir to manage the river water. The district made improvements, but land transfers really weren't. The improvements they did make was their drains that they dug did lower the water table and open up lands that were previously waterlogged to be cultivated. Provided water storage, well, it still does, water storage, and it stopped the flooding, and it consolidated 79 acequias. So we have the Albuquerque district, the Sandoval County district, the Valencia County district, and the Socorro County district. MRGCD, though, was unable to raise enough capital through taxation. Basically, when MRGCD was created, it was done by a petition. We mute. Good, thank you for muting. It was really loud when the jets fly over. Unfortunately, we're on a takeoff route from the Albuquerque airport. Pajarito is. It disturbs our peace for sure. Okay. But anyway, the district was created without an election. Basically, it was done by the Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce, and they went ahead and obtained 100 signatures from local businesses and rich farmers to create a conservancy district. The conservancy district is based upon the conservancy districts that were created in Ohio along the Mississippi River. They're the ones that have built the levees that try to keep the Mississippi from flooding the farmlands on either side. So they were private corporations. They started out by selling bonds in order to raise the capital necessary, and taxing then the landowners that would benefit from their for the building of their infrastructure, and as such then could use modern engineering ways of protecting and expanding farmland and diverting water for irrigation. So it was critical. The farmers that used the Acequias, as a rule, were small farmers, subsistence farmers. Basically, they grew food for their own consumption. Some for the marketplace here in Albuquerque as the farmers markets. Yes, is there a question? Okay, so they resisted the petition that was filed. Their petition, which had hundreds of signatures, not just the 100 that initiated it, was ignored, and the conservancy district then was created by the state legislature and taxed basically the landowners. The way that they taxed the landowners was the district between 1926 and 1927 conducted appraisals of all the irrigated lands. In these appraisals, they identified the crops that people were growing, estimated the value of the lands and of the crops, estimated how much additional land could be cultivated by their drains, figured out how much providing water for at least a full year or full season from March through October could improve their production. And then based upon this appraisal, they also identified from which Acequia they were taking their water and the easement. And they assigned monetary estimates for the value of the land and the value of the easements that the Acequia provided. These and ultimately used these appraisals to claim that they compensated both the Acequias for their easements and the landowners for taking over their easements and their access to the Acequias. And so that became then how they convinced the water court here, which is now the part of the second judicial district, to go ahead and give them control and management over the Acequias and the water that flows through them. Let's move on to the next item. In 1964, the New Mexico Acequia Association basically passed some reforms in the state legislature. The biggest reform was the adoption of the forfeiture rule that the state engineer had adopted. Prior to 1965, if a landowner failed to irrigate their land for 4 or more years, their water rights could be severed. Basically, the engineer, they would have to reapply to the engineer for a permit to irrigate. So many lands following the Second World War that had been abandoned in the valley that had pre-1907 water rights established by the Acequias, basically lost those water rights due to abandonment. However, the 64 law required that since 1965, the state engineer has to inform you that that you will lose your water rights if you do not resume irrigating. Suits have been filed by irrigators that lost their water rights in 1965 or prior to 1965. If they they have succeeded in obtaining their water rights back and getting them back by resuming irrigating their lands, because they can prove that they did not abandon them. That for whatever reason they didn't have the ability to irrigate. In many cases, simply the economy changed. Prior to the occupation by the United States, basically the economy was based upon, primarily the money economy was based upon sheep herding and the production of wool and of woven products and the driving of sheep to Chihuahua, Mexico. After the Santa Fe, the Mexican period, basically the Santa Fe Trail was opened up so that people here in New Mexico could trade in the United States. So wagon trains would come from St. Louis with manufactured products and canned products and other things that people couldn't get here in New Mexico. And that became the primary source of wealth. And the ricos, the large landowners, basically were able to take advantage of this, of these reforms in back when it became a territory of the United States. However, the secular reforms now protect us from being forfeited, and all we have to do is resume irrigating our lands here in the via the Acequia, via the Atrisco, to restore our pre-1907 water rights. So let's move on to the next item. Okay. Current day tribal rights. Okay, the Native Americans basically on the system of prior appropriation. We had the part under the customs and traditions of Acequias, we had the partido system. Partido system, basically everyone that irrigated, whether they were Native American pueblos or villages or Acequias, and their Acequias basically would share whatever water was available. So when the river ran dry, basically nobody got water. But under the system of prior appropriation, which is part of the Anglo-American system, American system as such, we have prior rights. The Native Americans have the most priority. They have prehistoric water rights for the watering of their lands. In the Middle Rio Grande, that's estimated around 8,000 acres. So those water rights, they want to basically they've asked the Bureau of Indian Affairs to conduct an analysis to see whether they should do an adjudication of their water rights, because they believe that they should have more water than what was considered way back in 1910 when Herbert Yao did his appraisals or his evaluations. The pueblos were not appraised by the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District. They are sovereign entities of their own and are not under the jurisdiction of the MRGCD. However, the BIA has a contract with the MRGCD to deliver water to all the 6 pueblos in the Middle Rio Grande, and that contract is renegotiated not yearly, but often. I don't know exactly how often it's renegotiated, and they also help pay the water assessment fees that the MRGCD levels against property owners in what's called a benefited area, which is the whole valley floor, whether it's being irrigated or not. Basically, every landowner, as well as the municipalities, pay taxes to the MRGCD. Basically, our property taxes. There's a mill levy that's basically taken from our property taxes to pay the MRGCD to maintain and operate our acequias and the dams and the weirs and assist us in maintaining the water rights in the Rio Grande. So they want to have these water rights adjudicated. So that brings us basically to the present day that we need to prepare for this. We need to basically, what we can do is restore our lands to irrigation and salvage as much of the Valle de Atrisco and its water rights as possible. The New Mexico Acequia Association is working to save lands up north that are still under Acequia jurisdiction. We must work with the MRGCD to restore as many of the pre-1907 water rights properties to irrigation as possible. MRGCD has a permit from the state engineer to divert 124,000 acre feet of water. 80,000 acre feet of that water are pre-1907 water rights. The other 40,000 are the lands that MRGCD claimed could be restored to irrigation. These were the lands that Herbert Yao in his 1910 survey said could be or were eligible for restoration with the building of the drains and draining of the waterlogged lands. MRGCD has not submitted its proof of beneficial use for these lands, and it is in the process of identifying the pre-1907 properties and also the lands that were restored to irrigation that were not on the 1926-27 appraisal sheets. So you can also claim 1926 and 27 water rights after 1907. Those have to be filed with the state engineer. We assist our Acequia members file both types of water rights, pre-1907 water rights in the MRGCD and 1926 and 1927 water rights in the MRGCD. So those are water rights that people can claim. The remaining water rights than would be the MRGCDs. The greatest threat to the loss of water rights in the Middle Rio Grande is not the MRGCDs, it's ours. Basically, our pre-1907 water rights can be sold and transferred. They actually call it transfer. Basically, water rights can be moved from the Parito Acequia to a irrigation well. And that's the primary use that water rights are. In order to cultivate a cash crop, you have to have an irrigation well. You can't use a domestic well. Every citizen of New Mexico can put in a domestic well if they can reach the water table, the aquifer under their property. However, they cannot sink a commercial well as such unless they transfer water rights like in the Rio Grande Basin from surface water to groundwater. So these water rights, surface water for Acequia water for pre-1907 have a great value, up to $50,000 an acre foot, and we own basically for every acre that we irrigate, 3 acre feet of water that can be diverted from the Rio Grande, and we can transfer or sell 2.1 acre feet of that water to for example, to a cannabis farmer that's not in the benefited area and doesn't have any water rights to basically grow cannabis. In 19, let's see, I think it was, I'm trying to remember what year it was that they did that. Is there a message? Yeah, not sure what year, basically, New Mexico Acequia Association got another reform. And that reform is that in order to transfer water rights from an acequia, you have to get the permission of the commissioners, basically, of the acequia. You would basically apply to them before you could apply to the state engineer for water transfer. The state engineer automatically approves water transfers. That's his purpose is economic development. So he has no problem taking water from our acequias and transferring it to irrigation wells for commercial purposes. So on the other hand, the new farmers that use drip irrigation that are starting to cultivate lands that had lost their water rights need these water rights also to cultivate vegetables, to basically irrigate their fruit trees and resume providing healthy organic food to our community. Food that's not been contaminated by bad water and food that can be used by our community. And in fact, organizations like La Placita Institute here in the South Valley operate a farm that's irrigated by an irrigation well that was put in by the Weatherspoon family here in Atrisco, in Armijo, I mean, and they basically grow organic vegetables and for distribution every Thursday and Friday to the community for no fee at all. They also get donations from Costco of meats and other goods whose time is nearing expiration for our community, and that's very helpful. Many of our members of our community, we're a poor community can't afford a Costco membership, for example, and in order to take advantage of their bulk food and meats, which is really, we even got some fruit trees this last year from their garden center, I guess. So it's very helpful to our community. So what we can do then is put our land back to beneficial use. Our commissioners can approve the improvements for head gates on the MRGCD operated Acequias, so that you can resume irrigating if you have a head gate to their Acequia. We can also assist community Acequias where more than one family irrigates from one head gate to obtain capital outlay money that is provided by our legislators. For example, Jerry Ortiz Pino appropriated $60,000 last year or 2 years ago to make improvements on the Pajarito Acequia. Andres Romero appropriated $10,000 to make improvements on the Don Gabino community Acequia, which irrigates off from the Pajarito Acequia. So these funds they can assist us in restoring irrigation to our community. Another example is in Los Padillas, Don Luis Trujillo basically obtained $60,000 from former legislator and chairman of the House Finance Committee, Enrique Saavedra, to run a irrigation pipe to 5 more irrigators from his head gate in Los Padillas. And we have a request from Don Licho Montoya to also restore his head gate, irrigate and reopen his community Acequia and provide water to several households in Los Padillas off of the Los Padillas Road from the Los Padillas Acequia. So these are the things that our commissioners can do. Our commissioners then can also assist our landowners in restoring easements that have been interfered with. And that's one of the roles that also another role that the commissioners do. We still have jurisdiction over the laterals from the Conservancy District. A Supreme Court ruling in 1947 basically took our ability to file or to obtain assessments from our members because MRGCD collects basically the property taxes or assessments for property. If you irrigate, then we also pay MRGCD an irrigation fee annually, and that fee is very inexpensive. It's $50 per acre. So if you have more than one acre, it's only $100 as such. So that's how our individual landowners then can prove that they're irrigating, and that's really important. In an adjudication, basically, the water court will and the state engineer will do a survey and determine who's still irrigating, and if they're not irrigating, they will claim that they abandoned their water rights, and both the MRGCD and our Acequias, our community, will lose our right to divert water, that water from. So we want to collaborate with MRGCD to maintain these acequias, to obtain the funding. Funding goes from the legislator to the Acequia division of the Interstate Stream Commission. And the Acequia department or division basically then MRGCD obtains the money from them and then contracts for the ditch improvements or installs the a new head gate themselves. They're putting in large 16-inch head gates, which are twice as big as many of the old head gates that have been abandoned. And this is to improve irrigation time. Basically, the way we distribute water, the way we take turns is through a rotation. And that rotation is based upon how long it takes you to irrigate your property. MRGCD is striving to be able and is asking property owners to try to make improvements so that their property, their acreage can be irrigated in 1 hour. So 1 hour per acre, half an hour for half an acre. A third 30 minutes and 10 minutes for a third of an acre. So it's really critical that that we make these improvements and restore water when we can to irrigation, to maintain the water, to keep our valley green, and to pass on to the next generations, to the next seven generations for another 500 years. So what can we do? We're having volunteer. We'll send you a survey. Attend our Los Padillas Second Walk and Talk on Saturday, September 27th. We'll be meeting at Don Luis's property and walking up the Acequia, the Los Padillas Acequia to the Indian Lateral. The Indian Lateral is still running water. The Firemont tribal people have additional water provided to them by the BIA. Basically, BIA holds water, some 15,000 acre feet at Abiquiu, and for when the river dries up, basically, so that they can keep irrigating. That water then is diverted up in Algodones, so the river might dry up here, but there might still be water in Algodones that's released from Cochiti on their behalf, so that they can continue irrigating. And there's still water in their Acequia and in the main canal that basically goes to their Acequia. And then we are holding Acequia elections. Our commissioners and mayordomos have to run for election every 2 years. If no one opposes their re-election, the same commissioners and mayordomos retain office for another 2 years. If there's a challenge and someone else wants to run for office, either a commissioner or a mayordomo, then an election has to be held in 15 days. So we'll be conducting our elections. You have to be there in person in order to vote, and it'll be Monday, October the 6th, so in a couple of weeks. So those basically are what you can do. The people with water rights then are eligible to vote, and it's one person, one vote. People with water rights can give proxies to other individuals who can then attend on their behalf and vote their the way they would like to vote. And that person can also run for office if they're not a property owner or water right owner on behalf of the other water right owner that they got the proxy from. So those are the things at our website, South Valley. It's www.sVRAA.org. We'll have copies of the election rules, the election laws, and the proxies for people that would like to attend, vote, and or run for office. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Santiago.
Sí.
Thank you, Santiago, for this very complete timeline of the Acequias and where they come from in the future.
Right. So that's our goal is to try to get as many people to restore that have abandoned their water rights, to restore their properties to irrigation and save our water. Ama nuestras aguas. Aguas vida. Y no se vende, se defiende.
Anybody has any questions? Muy bien, Santiago.
Alejandro.
A comment?
Yes.
Thank you so much. That was so detailed, to the point, concise, and yeah, super helpful. Thank you.
Well, there are links to many of these documents and additional documents that can assist you, including the permit that MRGCD has for irrigation, and which is great information. Basically, they claim they're there to restore lands to irrigation and to protect our water rights.
No, this is an important time to do all of that, taking into consideration that there's less water, there's hardly more dependency on outside sources of food. I was reading in the input of food from the outside into New Mexico is 99%.
Yeah.
Meaning we have no food sovereignty whatsoever, right? And then the according to the general data out there, 77% of the water goes to agriculture versus 6% goes to drilling and mining, and that's fine. But if we're only basically producing 1%, I thought it was 3%. I was always, so proud to say 3 to 5%. But now the official data from the state engineer says that only 1% of the food is produced in New Mexico. So if that is the case, then how come there is 77% of the water being used in agriculture, right? And so it's complicated.
Well, there's big business there too. The big producers. Yeah. They bring in over $1 billion a year in revenue. So even though it's only 1%, that's a lot of money. A lot of that is cheese. A lot of it is cheese that do have pecans, and of course green chili and onions. Those are the big cash crops, as well as cattle. So for us, it's just to feed our family and our community. That's what we're striving for.
That's right.
Yes.
And I think that,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah,
No, I
Okay.
was just gonna say, no, thinking in terms of the future and the role of Acequias as two political divisions of the state. I think that the as Acequias continue to get organized and understanding of the current water situation for the region, the big question in the future, near future, is how are we going to protect that? And then how are we going to reteach ourselves to regain some level of sustenance at some level, right? And so all these things that I think that our community needs to entertain in order to, I don't know, be a participant of history, not just a subject of history. Because the way that things are going, there are so many decisions that are being made at all levels where people are not having any saying, right? And so it's bad, right? It seems to me that, democratic values are not only being tossed out of the game, but this really disregard, and this is nothing new, disregard
yeah,
for the participation of people. So it's interesting. No, here in Atrisco, we can play with a new terminology and a new way of understanding democratic systems by doing what some scholars define as water democracy, and try
mhm,
to regain some level of governance over ourselves.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, because that even though that 1947 Supreme Court ruling confirmed MRGCD's takeover and
Mhm.
collection of taxes, uh, we still have a jurisdiction. The secular laws were not abolished, and
Mhm.
Chapter 72 is not abolished. And part of Chapter 73 of the water laws was not abolished. And we still have, they said, jurisdiction over the laterals that are not part of the MRGCD plan, like the Don Gabino Andrada lateral or the Don Luis Trujillo lateral over in Los Padillas as such. So those are examples of laterals. The lateral that runs behind your place over there that feeds through Don Hector
Mhm.
Gonzalez's. We call it the Don Hector Gonzalez lateral.
Dale. Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, to add to that and not to make it too long, but I think that, I always go back to, and I can never remember the specific portion of the law that says that no state agency has any jurisdiction over Acequia communities,
Mhm,
right? So meaning that once Acequias, say you and me and Hector's family, we get organized into an Acequia, then we have, full quote unquote sovereignty, right? In
mhm.
terms of the relationship that we have.
Yeah.
It's not a relationship of us vis-a-vis the government, right? It's just the fact that the government recognizes that acequias are older than their form of governance. And
Mhm.
I think that's beautiful. I think that's something that, if it was well understood, it will give us, as a community, a different sense of empowerment that doesn't have to be political, radical, or anything like that.
Yeah.
It is what
Yeah.
it is based on the
Grassroots.
constitutional rights.
Mhm, mhm. It's basically citizens exercising our rights.
That's right.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that. Well, muchas gracias, Santiago. Thank you very much. We're gonna follow up with our own James Aranda James Aranda is currently the director of planning for the city. He's an Atrisqueño. He did his master's program and project was on Atrisco. He did a cultural inventory and other things, and so we're having another schedule another talk for him to tell us more about the cultural attributes and the cultural places from Atrisco, and then in November we're gonna close this year with Megan Marcy from the county. She's gonna tell us about water conservation initiatives that they're right now organizing, and so. It's going to be all interesting, Santiago. Thank you very much. And for those of you who might be interested more in Acequias, don't hesitate to reach out for more information. If you think that you live in a beneficial area in the South Valley place, you don't know whether you do not, ask. Houses don't have to be right next to an Acequia for a property to have water rights. And so, ask Santiago is the library of Acequias here in the South Valley for his many years of involvement and level of intelligence with these things. So don't hesitate. And there's a lot of programming also, I think it's time that the South Valley reconvenes itself back into a family. And little by little, we're playing the drums of peace and bringing us back, no? And we'll continue to do that.
Yeah, I'd like to comment. This morning, I connected with Don Licho Montoya from the mayordomo of the Los Padillas Cemetery. Anyway, like I said earlier, he wants to reconnect his properties to the Acequia and start helping his neighbors irrigate again. So yeah, that's what we do. That's the real grassroots. And that's what he said. It's not just for him. It's for the neighborhood. And he said a lot of people want to reconnect and resume their customs and traditions. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're ready to wrap it up. If you do think of a question later on, you can always email us info@cesos.org, and you'll receive an email with a survey, invitations to our events, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.
Good night. Buenas noches.